My son died in a car accident. At 76, I had billions in the bank, but had lost what mattered most. One day, I walked into the kitchen and saw my maid's daughter eating leftovers. She looked at me and said, "Can I save the bone for Mom? Since Dad passed, things got hard." When I asked who her father was, my world collapsed. I am glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you are watching from so I can see how far my story has reached. The house felt like a mausoleum. Every room echoed with memories I was not ready to face. Every corner held shadows of a life that ended too soon. At 76, I had everything money could buy and nothing that truly mattered. My son Michael had been gone for 7 months now, taken in a car accident that still did not feel real. I wandered through the mansion's halls like a ghost in my own home. The staff moved quietly around me, their whispered conversations stopping whenever I entered a room. They meant well, but their pity felt suffocating. Mariana Alvarez, my housekeeper, was the only one who did not treat me like broken china. She had been with us for about 7 months, arriving right after Michael's death, when I could barely function enough to hire help. That Thursday afternoon, I found myself walking toward the kitchen, drawn by the sound of something unusual. Not the typical clatter of meal preparation, but something softer, more secretive. I pushed through the swinging doors and stopped short. There, sitting cross-legged on the floor beside the industrial refrigerator, was a small girl. She could not have been more than 9 years old, with dark hair pulled back in a messy ponytail and clothes that had seen better days. In her hands was a plate that clearly held leftovers from yesterday's dinner. She looked up at me with wide, startled eyes the color of coffee. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she scrambled to her feet, nearly dropping the plate in her haste. "I am sorry, ma'am," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I did not think anyone would mind if I just—" "Who are you?" I asked, though something about her face tugged at my memory in a way I could not place. "I am Camila," she said, clutching the plate against her chest. "Mariana's my mom. She said I could wait here while she finishes upstairs." I studied her more carefully. She was thin, too thin, and there was a maturity in her eyes that no child should have. The way she held herself suggested she was used to being invisible, to taking up as little space as possible. "What are you eating?" I asked, stepping closer. Camila's cheeks flushed pink. "Just some leftover pot roast. Mom said it was okay since it was just going to be thrown away anyway." She paused, then added in an even smaller voice, "Can I save the bone for Mom? Since Dad passed, things got hard, and Mom said bones make the best soup stock." The words hit me like a physical blow. This child, this beautiful little girl, was eating scraps from my table while I let perfectly good food go to waste. But it was more than that. Something about the way she tilted her head when she spoke, the stubborn set of her jaw, reminded me so strongly of Michael when he was young that my breath caught in my throat. "Your father passed away?" I asked gently, lowering myself into one of the kitchen chairs to be at her eye level. Camila nodded solemnly. 7 months ago, in a car accident." She looked down at the plate in her hands. "He was coming home from work and it was raining really hard. Mom said sometimes bad things just happen to good people." 7 months ago, the same time Michael died. I felt something cold settle in the pit of my stomach, though I could not have said why. Thousands of people died in car accidents every year. It was just a coincidence. "I am sorry for your loss," I said, and meant it. "What was your father's name?" "Victor Lynn," she said, her voice growing even quieter. "He worked really hard to take care of us, but he was always kind. Even when he was tired, he would read me stories before bed. I filed the name away, though it meant nothing to me. And now, it is just you and your mother. Camilla nodded again. Mom works really hard, too. She cleans houses and takes care of people like you. She said you have been very sad since your son went away. The innocence in her voice when she said went away nearly broke my heart. Mariana had clearly tried to shelter her daughter from the harsh reality of death, at least when it came to explaining my grief. Yes, I said simply. I have been very sad. I have. Maybe you and Mom can be sad together, Camilla suggested with the wisdom that sometimes comes from children who have seen too much. Mom cries sometimes when she thinks I'm sleeping. Maybe crying with someone else would help. I stared at this remarkable little girl, unable to find words, realizing that in her small, gentle way, she understood more about loss than most adults ever could. I stared at this remarkable little girl, wondering how someone so young could possess such emotional intelligence. There was something almost familiar about her insight, as if I had heard similar words before from another child's mouth. Camila! Mariana's voice called from the doorway, sharp with panic. What are you doing in here? I turned to see my housekeeper frozen in the entrance. Her face was pale with what looked like fear rather than mere embarrassment. Mariana was a woman in her early 30s, with the same dark hair as her daughter and worry lines that seemed too deep for her age. I am sorry, Mrs. Bennet Mariana said, quickly, moving toward her daughter. Camilla knows she is not supposed to bother you. Come on, sweetheart, let us go wait in the car. She was not bothering me, I said, surprised by the sharpness in my own voice. In fact, she was quite delightful company. Mariana's eyes darted between me and Camilla, and I caught something there. Guilt, maybe, or fear. It was the look of someone caught in a lie, though I could not imagine what she might be lying about. Thank you for being kind to her, Mariana said carefully. But we should really be going. I just finished the upstairs bathrooms. Mariana, I said, standing slowly. How long did you say you had been in the area? About 7 months, she replied, but her voice wavered slightly. We moved here from Stockton after Victor died. Fresh start, you know. I nodded, though something about her answer felt rehearsed. And you found work quickly. I was lucky, Mariana said, her hand moving protectively to Camilla's shoulder. Mrs. Harris at the employment agency said you needed someone right away. That was true. In the weeks following Michael's death, I had been incapable of managing the household staff. My previous housekeeper had quit, overwhelmed by my grief and erratic behavior. Mariana had arrived like an answer to a prayer I had not known I was praying. Well, I said, watching, as Mariana guided Camilla toward the door. Perhaps next time Camilla visits, she could join me for a proper meal instead of eating leftovers on the floor. Mariana's grip tightened on her daughter's shoulder. That is very kind, but I could not impose. It would not be an imposition, I said firmly. A child should not have to eat scraps. As they left, I heard Camilla whisper to her mother, She is nice, Mama. She has sad eyes like yours. I stood alone in the kitchen, staring at the spot where Camilla had been sitting. Something was bothering me, gnawing at the edges of my consciousness, like a half-remembered dream. The way she had spoken about her father, the timing of his death. Even the way Mariana had looked when I asked questions. But it was more than that. It was the child herself. Those eyes, that stubborn jaw, the way she had tilted her head when thinking. Where had I seen those gestures before? As I walked back to my study, Michael's words from years ago echoed in my memory. Sometimes the most important truths are the ones we are not ready to hear. I had no idea how prophetic those words would prove to be. I could not stop thinking about Camila. Over the next few days, she haunted my thoughts in a way that was both comforting and deeply unsettling. There was something about her that pulled at memories I could not quite grasp, like trying to remember a song with only a few notes to guide you. Mariana arrived the following Monday with Camila in tow again. I had been waiting positioned in the morning room where I could see the kitchen entrance. I told myself it was coincidence, but I knew better. I needed to see the child again to understand why she affected me so profoundly. This time, I intercepted them before Mariana could leave Camila waiting somewhere out of sight. "Good morning," I said, stepping into their path. "Camila, would you like to see the garden while your mother works?" The little girl's face lit up, but Mariana's expression grew tight. "Mrs. Bennet, I do not want Camila to be a burden. Children are never a burden," I said, though the words tasted bitter. How many times had I failed to live up to that principle with my own son? Besides, the gardens are beautiful this time of year. It seems a shame to waste them on an old woman who rarely appreciates them anymore. Mariana looked trapped, unable to refuse without seeming ungrateful. She knelt down to Camila's level, speaking in rapid, whispered Spanish. I caught enough to understand she was telling her daughter to be good, to stay close, not to touch anything. "She will be fine," I assured Mariana, extending my hand to Camila. "Will you not?" Dear Camila nodded eagerly and slipped her small hand into mine. The contact sent an unexpected jolt through me. Her hand was warm and slightly rough, the hand of a child who helped with household chores. But there was something else, something in the shape of her fingers, that made my chest tighten. As we walked through the garden, Camila chattered with the unconscious ease of a child who had not yet learned to guard her words. She told me about the small apartment she shared with her mother. She told me about how she helped with laundry folding and dish drying, about the picture books they borrowed from the library because buying new ones was too expensive. "Mama reads to me every night," she said, stopping to examine a rosebush. "She does different voices for all the characters. She is really good at the monster voices." "What about your father?" I asked carefully. "Did he read to you too?" Camila's face grew wistful. "Sometimes, but he was always really busy. Mama said he worked extra hard to make sure we had everything we needed." She looked up at me with those unsettling, familiar eyes. "Did your son like to read when he was little?" The question caught me off guard. "Yes," I said softly. "He loved adventure stories, pirates, treasure hunters, and brave knights." "I like those too," Camila said, then added with startling insight. "Mama says, when people we love go away, we keep them alive by remembering the things they liked." I stared down at her, this wise little girl, who spoke about loss with the gravity of someone far older. "Your mother sounds very smart." "She is. She knows lots of things. She can fix almost anything that breaks, and she makes the best pancakes in the whole world." Camila paused, bending to pick up a fallen flower petal. "She gets sad sometimes, though, especially when she looks at old pictures." "Pictures of your father?" I asked. Camila nodded, but then her expression grew thoughtful. "And other pictures, too, from before I was born. She keeps them in a box under her bed. Sometimes I catch her looking at them and crying." A chill ran down my spine. What kind of pictures, I do not know. "She always puts them away when she sees me watching." Camila shrugged with the casual acceptance of a child used to adult mysteries. "Grown-ups have secrets sometimes. Mama says it is not because they do not trust us, but because some things are too heavy for little hearts to carry." The phrase struck me like a lightning bolt. Too heavy for little hearts to carry. Those exact words. I had heard them before, spoken in a different voice, at a different time. Michael had said them to me once, when he was perhaps 10 years old, trying to explain why he did not want to tell me about some playground conflict. Where had he learned that phrase? Not from me. I had been too practical, too focused on solutions rather than feelings. I had taught him to be strong, to handle problems head on, but someone had taught him gentleness, taught him that some burdens were meant to be shared carefully. Camila, I said, my voice strangely hoarse. Do you remember anything about Stockton? About your life before you moved here? She tilted her head in that achingly familiar gesture. A little. We lived in a smaller house and I had a swing in the backyard. Papa used to push me really high until Mama would get scared and make him stop. Her face clouded. But Papa traveled a lot for work. He was gone sometimes for days and days. What kind of work did he do? I asked. I am not sure. Something with computers, I think. He always had a big bag with papers and a laptop. She brightened suddenly. But when he came home, he always brought me something special. Little things like pretty rocks, or funny pencils, or books. My hands were trembling now. Michael had traveled frequently for business in the years before his death, computer consulting for various firms throughout Northern California. And he had always brought me small gifts when he returned tokens that showed he had been thinking of me even when we were apart. These trips, I said carefully. How often did your father go away? Maybe once a month, sometimes more. Mama said it was because he was really good at his job and people needed his help. Camila's voice grew smaller. I used to ask if I could go with him, but he always said it was just for grown-ups. Once a month, for how long? I thought back over the past few years, trying to remember Michael's travel schedule. He had been going to Stockton regularly, had he not? Something about a long-term client, a project that required frequent oversight. Camila Mariana's voice cut through my spiraling thoughts. She was hurrying across the garden toward us, her face flushed with what looked like panic. There you are. I have been looking everywhere. We were just exploring, I said, studying Mariana's expression. She is a delightful companion. Mariana's smile was strained. I am sure she is, but we really should be going. I have other houses to clean today. Of course, I said, but I did not move to release Camila's hand. Mariana. I was wondering, you mentioned that Victor traveled for work. What company did he work for? The color drained from Mariana's face. It was freelance, mostly computer consulting. Nothing you would have heard of. Computer consulting? I repeated slowly. How interesting. My son was in the same field. Mariana's eyes darted away from mine. Really? What a coincidence. But it did not feel like a coincidence. Nothing about this felt like a coincidence anymore. What was the name of Victor's primary client? I pressed. The one in Stockton I do not remember, Mariana said, quickly reaching for Camila's other hand. He handled all the business details. I just knew when he would be traveling. She was lying. I could see it in the way her shoulders tensed, in the way she avoided my gaze. But why would she lie about something so simple? As I watched them walk away, Camila turned back to wave at me, and I felt that jolt of recognition again. This time, I knew what it was. The way she moved her hand, the slight tilt of her wrist, it was exactly how Michael had waved as a child. Exactly. That evening, I sat in my study, staring at the box of Michael's personal effects that I had never been able to bring myself to sort through. His laptop, his business files, his appointment calendars, everything was there waiting for me to find the courage to face it. Maybe it was time I did. I spent 4 sleepless nights staring at Michael's laptop before I finally found the courage to open it. My hands shook as I typed in his password, a combination of my birthday and his childhood dog's name that he had never bothered to change. The screen flickered to life, and suddenly, I was drowning in the digital remnants of my son's life. His calendar was a maze of appointments, meetings, and travel dates stretching back years. I scrolled through the entries, looking for anything related to Stockton. What I found made my blood run cold. Monthly trips to Stockton going back almost 9 years. Always the same client-listed Lynn Consulting Group. Always overnight stays. Always coded in his calendar with a small heart emoji that I had never noticed before. Lynn. Victor Lynn. Camila's father. My vision blurred as the pieces began falling into place with sickening clarity. Michael had not been traveling to Stockton for business meetings. He had been traveling to see someone important enough to warrant a heart in his calendar, someone he had been visiting regularly for years. I fumbled through his email searching for any mention of Lynn or Stockton. What I found was worse than I had imagined. Dozens of emails carefully filed in a folder labeled personal projects, dinner reservations, hotel bookings, transfers of money, always, small amounts, always with notes like for C's ballet classes or grocery emergency. CL. Camila Lynn. My hands were trembling so violently I could barely scroll through the messages. There were photos attached to some emails, a birthday party for a little girl with familiar eyes, a woman with dark hair, laughing at something off camera. Michael himself, relaxed and smiling in a way I had not seen in years, pushing a small child on a swing. The swing Camila had mentioned in the backyard of her old house. I slammed the laptop shut and ran to the bathroom, barely making it before I was violently sick. When the retching stopped, I sat on the cold tile floor and tried to make sense of what I had discovered. Michael had been living a double life. For 9 years, he had been supporting another family, visiting them regularly, playing father to a child who was never supposed to exist. And now that child was in my kitchen eating leftovers while I mourned the son who had betrayed everything I thought I knew about him. But there was something else, something that made the betrayal even worse. In one of the photos, I had seen a date stamp. Camila's 8th birthday party just 9 months ago. Michael had been there, smiling present, while he had missed my own birthday that same week because of a so-called crucial business meeting. How many family dinners had he skipped? How many holidays had he cut short? How many times had I eaten alone while he was playing house with Mariana and Camila? The rage that swept through me was unlike anything I had ever felt. It burned in my chest, consumed my thoughts, made my hands shake with the need to break something, anything. Michael was dead beyond my reach. But Mariana was here. Mariana, who had brought her daughter into my home, who had let me fall in love with a child she knew was connected to my son's lies. I stormed through the house looking for Mariana. I found her in the laundry room folding towels with mechanical precision, while Camila colored quietly in the corner. "We need to talk," I said, my voice deadly calm. "Now." Mariana looked up, and I saw the exact moment she recognized the fury in my eyes. Her face went white, and she glanced quickly at Camila before nodding. "Camila, sweetheart," she said in Spanish, "go wait in the kitchen. Have some juice and crackers." The little girl looked between us with the intuitive awareness children have for adult tension, but she obediently gathered her coloring supplies and left. Mariana waited until her daughter's footsteps faded before turning back to me. "You know," she said quietly. It was not a question. "I know that Victor Lynn was not your husband," I said, each word falling like a stone into still water. "I know that the man who died in that car accident was my son. And I know that you have been lying to me since the moment you walked into this house." Mariana's composure cracked. Tears started flowing down her cheeks, but she did not try to deny it. "How did you find out?" Mariana asked, her voice trembling. "His laptop, his calendar, 9 years of visits to Stockton, 9 years of supporting you and Camila while I sat here alone, wondering why my son seemed so distant." My voice was rising, despite my efforts to control it. 9 years of lies. "It was not supposed to happen this way," Mariana whispered. "When Michael died, I did not know what to do. Camilla kept asking when Papa was coming home, and I could not tell her the truth. I could not explain that the man she loved was someone else's son, someone else's whole world. "So, you decided to come here to work in my house?" I said bitterly, "to let your daughter eat at my table, knowing what you knew." Mariana wrapped her arms around herself, looking smaller and more fragile than I had ever seen her. I was desperate. Michael had been helping us financially, and when he died, I had nothing. No job, no family, no way to support Camila. I thought if I could just work for you for a while, save some money, maybe find a way to tell you about her. "Tell me what about her?" I demanded, though I already knew. The knowledge sat in my chest like a lead weight waiting for confirmation. Mariana met my eyes, and I saw years of grief, fear, and desperate love reflected there. "That she is your granddaughter." The words hung in the air between us, final and irreversible. Everything I thought I knew about my life, my family, my son's death crumbled in that moment. Michael had not just been having an affair. He had had a childhood daughter who called him Papa and waited for him to come home from his business trips. "She does not know," Mariana added quickly. "Camila thinks Victor was her father. Michael wanted it that way. He said it was too complicated, that you would not understand." Would not understand what? My voice cracked. That my son was living a lie, that he was playing father to your daughter while treating me like an obligation? "It was not like that," Mariana said fiercely. "Michael loved you. He talked about you all the time. But he was scared, Mrs. Bennett. Scared that you would not approve of me, of Camila, of the choices he made." "What choices? Having an affair? Abandoning his responsibilities?" Mariana flinched, then said quietly, "Choosing love over expectation." "Michael said you had plans for his life, plans that did not include a housekeeper and her daughter." The accusation hit me like a slap. Had I been so controlling, so demanding, that my own son felt he could not share the most important parts of his life with me? Had I driven him to create a secret family because he could not trust me with his real one? "He was going to tell you," Mariana continued, her voice breaking. "After Camila's 9th birthday," Mariana said softly. "He told me he was tired of living in two worlds, tired of pretending. He wanted us to be a real family. But he never got the chance. The accident took that possibility away, leaving me alone with a daughter who did not know her true parentage, and you alone with a son you had never really known." "Where were they going that night?" I asked quietly. "Michael and Victor." Mariana's tears came harder now. "Michael was taking Victor to meet you." Finally. Victor was my boyfriend, my partner in raising Camila. Even though he was not her biological father, Michael wanted to do right by all of us. He was going to bring Victor here, introduce him as Camila's stepfather, and then tell you the truth about everything. The irony was crushing. Michael had died trying to fix the lie, trying to bring his two worlds together. And in the aftermath, Mariana had perpetuated the deception out of desperation and grief. "Why did you not tell me when you came to work here?" I asked. "Why let me believe Camila was just your daughter?" "Because I was terrified," Mariana admitted. "Terrified that you would hate her for existing. Terrified that you would blame her for Michael's choices. I thought if you could get to know her first, see how special she is, maybe you could forgive the circumstances of her birth." I stared at this woman who had carried such an enormous secret, who had watched me grieve my son, while knowing she was grieving him too. In her own way, Mariana had lost as much as I had, perhaps more, because she had lost the man she loved, and the father of her child, but had not been allowed to mourn publicly. "She really does not know?" I asked. Mariana shook her head. "Michael made me promise. He said if anything ever happened to him, I should let Camila believe Victor was her father. He thought it would be easier for everyone. But it was not easier. It was a lie that trapped us all in different kinds of pain. From the kitchen came the sound of Camilla's voice humming a tune I recognized. It was a lullaby I used to sing to Michael when he was small, one I had never heard from anyone else's lips. He taught her that song, Mariana said quietly, following my gaze. He said his mother used to sing it to him. My throat closed. Even in death, Michael was reaching across the divide he had created, connecting me to the granddaughter I had never known existed. The weight of secrets was crushing, but beneath it all was a more painful truth. I had a granddaughter who needed me, and I had no idea how to be the grandmother she deserved. The silence in the laundry room stretched between Mariana and me like a chasm. My granddaughter. The words echoed in my head, but they felt foreign, impossible, 9 years old, and I had never known she existed. 9 years of birthdays, scraped knees, first days of school, bedtime stories, all shared with strangers while I sat alone in my empty mansion. Tell me everything, I said. Finally, my voice heavy from the weight of revelation. From the beginning. No more lies. Mariana sank into the folding chair beside the dryer, looking older than her 33 years. I met Michael about 9 years ago when I was cleaning offices downtown. He worked late most nights, and we started talking. Just small talk at first, but he seemed lonely. Really lonely. I thought back to that time. Michael had just gone through a difficult breakup with a woman I had hoped he might marry. Emily. Her name was sophisticated, educated, from a good family. Everything I thought he needed. When that relationship ended, Michael had withdrawn from me even more than usual. He never talked about family at first. Mariana continued, but gradually he opened up. He said he felt like he was disappointing everyone, especially his mother, that nothing he did was ever quite enough. The words stung because they held a grain of truth I did not want to acknowledge. Had I been so demanding, so critical, I thought I had been encouraging Michael to reach his potential, but maybe I had only been pushing him away. We started meeting for coffee after I finished cleaning his building. Mariana said, her voice growing softer, more nostalgic. He was so kind, so interested in my life. No one had ever asked me about my dreams before, my thoughts about books or movies, or anything beyond just getting through the day. When I told him I was pregnant, I expected him to run. Most men would have, but he did not. No, he cried. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. He said he had never thought he could be a father, never thought he deserved to be loved that unconditionally. He wanted to marry me right away, but I would not let him. I could see he was torn between two worlds, and I did not want to be another obligation weighing him down. So you let him live a double life instead, I said sharply. Mariana flinched at my tone. I let him figure out what he wanted. He said he needed time to prepare you to find the right way to tell you about us. He was terrified you would think I was after his money, that you would see Camilla as some kind of mistake. I wanted to deny it, but the truth was, I probably would have a cleaning woman with a baby targeting my successful son. I would have seen it as manipulation, as gold digging. The realization made me feel sick. He supported you financially? I said. It was not a question. He tried to, Mariana replied. I did not want his money, but he insisted on helping with doctor bills when I was pregnant, then later with childcare so I could work. He said Camilla was his responsibility, his joy. He wanted to provide for her. Mariana's voice grew stronger, more defensive. But I worked too, Mrs. Bennett. I cleaned houses, babysat other people's children. I never wanted to be dependent on anyone. What about Victor? When did he come into the picture, I asked. Mariana's expression softened. About a year after Camilla was born. He was a client, actually. I was cleaning his apartment, and Camilla was with me because my babysitter was sick. She was fussy crying and I was so embarrassed. But Victor just picked her up and started making funny faces until she laughed. I could picture it, Camila as a toddler charming a stranger with her smile. She had that effect on people, that natural warmth that drew others in. Victor knew about Michael from the beginning, Mariana continued. I was honest with him about everything. I thought he would run too, but he said he would rather love us part-time than not at all. He became Camila's stepfather in every way that mattered, even though Michael was her biological father. And Michael was okay with this arrangement, I asked incredulously. He was grateful for it, actually, Mariana said softly. He loved Camila desperately, but he was not ready to be a full-time father. Having Victor there meant Michael could visit without the pressure of daily responsibilities. It meant Camila had a father figure who was present all the time, not just on weekends and business trips. The complexity of their arrangement boggled my mind. 3 adults navigating love, parenthood, and sacrifice in ways I could never have imagined. And through it all, a little girl who was loved by all of them, protected by their lies, even as those lies isolated her from half her family. Did Michael ever talk about bringing Camila to meet me? I asked finally. Mariana nodded. All the time, especially in the last year. He said he was tired of hiding, tired of missing parts of Camila's life, because he could not explain where he had been. He wanted her to know her grandmother. Wanted you to see how amazing she was. She hesitated, then added gently. But he was afraid I would reject her. He was afraid you would reject him. He said you had very clear ideas about what his life should look like, and a cleaning woman's daughter did not fit that picture, Mariana said quietly. I closed my eyes, remembering all the conversations Michael and I had shared about his future. The suitable women I had introduced him to, the social events I had encouraged him to attend, the life I had mapped out for him without ever asking what he wanted. Had I been so controlling that my own son felt he could not share his happiness with me? The night of the accident, I said slowly, "You told me they were coming here to tell me everything." Mariana's face crumpled. Michael had finally gotten the courage. He had proposed to me the week before. He said he was done living in pieces. He wanted to marry me and make Victor Camila's legal stepfather and bring us all together as a family. He said it was time you met your granddaughter. But Victor was nervous about meeting me, she added, tears filling her eyes. Terrified, actually. He kept asking Michael what he should wear, what he should say. I could almost see it, the man rehearsing how to greet me, how to make a good impression. Michael finally told him to just be himself, that anyone who loved Camila could not be all bad. Mariana let out a bitter laugh. Victor spent that whole day practicing how to shake your hand, how to introduce himself as Camila's father, without lying, but without revealing the whole truth. The image of him nervous about meeting you, it broke my heart. He died trying to help Michael do the right thing. What was the plan, I asked. How were they going to tell me Michael was going to bring Victor here for dinner? Casual, just as a friend at first. Then he was going to show you pictures of Camila, maybe videos of her dancing or singing. He wanted you to fall in love with her before you knew who she was. Mariana's voice grew wistful. He said once you saw how special she was, the rest would not matter. But they had never made it to dinner. The rain had been heavy that night, the road slick. By the time I had started wondering why Michael was late, they were both already gone. I waited for 3 hours. Mariana continued softly. Camila kept asking when Papa and Victor were coming home. I made excuses, told her they were probably just caught in traffic. When the police came to the door, she shuddered. I had to tell Camila that both her fathers were gone. Both her fathers. The phrase struck deep, highlighting the beautiful, complicated family they had built together. A family I had never been allowed to be part of, because my son had not trusted me enough to share it. After the funeral, Mariana said, I did not know what to do. Victor's family did not have much money. Mariana said quietly, and I could not afford to stay in Stockton without Michael's help. I heard through a mutual friend that you needed a housekeeper, and I thought maybe it was a sign. A sign to what I asked bitterly, to torture me with what I had lost. A sign that maybe Camila could know her grandmother after all. Mariana replied firmly. I thought if I worked here, if you got to know her naturally, maybe someday I could find the courage to tell you the truth. But you did not plan on me finding out like this. Mariana shook her head. I thought I had more time. I thought maybe when she started school here, when she was older, and could understand the complexity of it all, then maybe I could explain everything. From the kitchen came the sound of Camila's laughter, bright and musical. She was talking to someone, probably herself, creating elaborate stories for her crayons. The sound was so much like Michael's childhood laughter that it physically hurt to hear. She has his laugh, I said, without thinking. Mariana smiled through her tears. She has his stubborn streak too, and his way of tilting her head when she is thinking really hard about something. I noticed that I admitted. It is what made me suspicious in the first place. Michael used to say she was going to be trouble when she got older, because she was too smart for her own good, just like he was. Mariana looked at me directly. She is a good kid, Mrs. Bennett. Better than good. She is kind and funny and resilient. She survived losing 2 fathers and being uprooted from everything familiar. And she still finds reasons to smile every day. I believed her. In the brief time I had spent with Camila, I had seen glimpses of that strength, that innate goodness that reminded me so much of Michael at his best. What happens now? I asked quietly. Mariana straightened her shoulders, and I saw the steel beneath her gentle exterior. That is up to you. I can take Camila and leave tonight if that is what you want. I can find another job, another place to start over. I will not ask you for anything. And if I do not want you to leave, I asked softly, then maybe we can figure out how to be a family, the kind Michael wanted us to be. Mariana's voice was steady, but I could see the hope and fear warring in her eyes. Camila deserves to know her grandmother, she said. And maybe you deserve to know her too. I thought about the empty years stretching ahead of me, the silence that had settled over this house since Michael's death. Then I thought about Camila's laughter echoing through these halls, about having a reason to bake cookies again, about bedtime stories and scraped knees and all the small, precious moments I had missed. But beneath the longing was anger at Michael for keeping this from me, anger at Mariana for perpetuating the lie, anger at myself for being the kind of mother and mother-in-law who inspired such secrecy. I need time, I said finally. This is all too much to process at once. Mariana nodded. I understand, but Mrs. Bennett, please do not punish Camila for our mistakes. Whatever you decide about me, she is innocent in all this. She was right. Camila had not chosen to be born into this complicated web of love and lies. She was just a little girl who needed stability, who needed to know she was wanted. As Mariana left to collect her daughter, I stood alone among the towels and wondered if it was possible to love someone you had been betrayed by. Because despite everything, despite the lies, the secrecy, and the years of deception, I could feel my heart opening to the granddaughter I had never known existed. The question was whether I could find a way to forgive the people who had kept her from me. 3 days passed in a haze of sleepless nights and unanswered questions. I had asked Mariana to take some time off, claiming I needed space to process everything. But the truth was, I could not bear to look at Camila without seeing Michael's eyes staring back at me. Every time I heard her voice echoing through the house, every glimpse of her playing in the garden felt like a knife twisting in an already bleeding wound. I spent those days going through Michael's belongings with forensic precision, searching for every trace of the life he had hidden from me. What I found painted a picture of a man I had never really known, despite having raised him for 36 years. Hidden in his desk drawer beneath insurance papers and old tax returns, I found a small wooden box I had never seen before. Inside were treasures that told the story of his secret fatherhood. Camila's first ultrasound photo, a hospital bracelet from the day she was born, her first drawing, a Mother's Day card she had made for Mariana with Michael's name carefully printed at the bottom as Papa. Each item was a revelation and a betrayal. While I had been wondering why Michael seemed distracted during family dinners, he had been teaching his daughter to write. While I had been planning holiday celebrations, he had always found excuses to cut them short. He had been building traditions with another family. The most devastating discovery was a letter written in Michael's careful handwriting and dated just 2 weeks before his death. My dearest Camila, by the time you read this, you will be old enough to understand complicated things about love and family. I want you to know that you were never a secret because I was ashamed of you. You were a secret because I was afraid of losing you. Your grandmother is a wonderful woman, but she has very strong ideas about how life should be lived. And I was scared she would not understand how much I love you and your mother. I hope someday you will meet her and see that she has a heart big enough to love you too if I can find the courage to let her try. You are the best part of me, little one. Never forget that. All my love, Papa. I read the letter 3 times before the words blurred through my tears. Michael had loved Camila desperately, but he had been terrified of my judgment, terrified enough to live a double life for 9 years rather than risk introducing us. What kind of mother had I been that my own son feared my reaction to his happiness? The guilt was suffocating, but I forced myself to continue searching. I needed to understand the full scope of what I had missed, the complete picture of Michael's hidden life. In his laptop, I found video files that nearly broke me. Hours of footage of Camila growing up from her first steps to her latest piano recital. Michael was behind the camera, his voice full of pride and love, as he encouraged her to show Papa your twirl, or tell Papa about your day at school. In one video, Camila could not have been more than 9 years old. She was wearing a pink tutu and attempting to teach Michael how to dance her small hands, trying to position his much larger ones correctly. "No, Papa," she giggled, like this. "You have to be graceful like a swan, not clumsy like a bear." Michael's laughter in response was pure joy, the kind of unguarded happiness I had not heard from him in years. "I think I am more of a dancing bear," he said deliberately, stumbling for her amusement. "Bears do not do ballet very well," Camila said with the earnest sweetness of a child. "That is okay. Mama says it is not about being perfect. It is about having fun together." The wisdom in her words, the easy affection between them, the glimpse of Michael as a father, rather than just my distant son, shattered something inside me. This was the man I had lost, but it was also the man I had never been allowed to know. Yet despite the overwhelming evidence, a small part of me still needed scientific confirmation. The rational part of my mind, the part that had built a business empire, demanded absolute proof before I could fully accept this new reality. I called Dr. Patricia Walsh, my longtime physician and friend. Patricia Walsh, my longtime physician and friend, listened quietly as I explained that I needed a discreet DNA test. She asked no questions, simply scheduled an appointment and provided the necessary materials. Getting Camila's sample was easier than I had expected. When Mariana returned to work, I asked her to bring Camila along, claiming I had missed having young energy in the house. It was not entirely a lie. The mansion had felt even more tomb-like without the sound of small feet running through the halls. While Mariana worked upstairs, I offered to help Camilla with a craft project. As she concentrated on gluing sequins to a picture frame, I carefully collected a few strands of hair that had fallen on her collar. She was so absorbed in her artwork that she never noticed. "This is for you," she announced when she finished holding up the sparkly frame. "So you can put a picture of someone you love inside it." The innocence of the gesture nearly undid me. "It is beautiful, sweetheart." "Thank you." "Mama has lots of pictures of people she loves." Camilla continued carefully cleaning glue from her fingers. "She keeps them in a special box. There is one of a man who looks kind of like you, but younger. She cries sometimes when she looks at it." My heart stopped. "A man who looks like me?" Camilla nodded solemnly. "Mama said he was someone very special who went to heaven. She keeps his picture next to the one of me and Papa at the park. Michael." Mariana had been keeping photos of Michael grieving him in private while helping me grieve him publicly. The thought of her looking at his picture and crying with no one to comfort her because their relationship had been a secret added another layer to my growing understanding of the complexity of this situation. The DNA results arrived 5 days later. Dr. Walsh called personally to deliver the news, though by then it was merely a formality. "Mabel," she said gently, "the test confirms a biological relationship. The child is definitely your granddaughter." I thanked her and hung up, then sat in my study, staring at the official document that made it real. Camilla Sophia Lynn was my granddaughter, Michael's daughter, my family. But knowing it scientifically and accepting it emotionally were two very different things. The child I had been falling in love with over the past few weeks was not just Mariana's daughter anymore. She was Michael's legacy, the living embodiment of the life he had built without me. That evening, I asked Mariana to stay after work for a conversation. Camilla was in the garden chasing fireflies with the abandon of childhood, giving us the privacy we needed to talk. "The test confirmed it," I said without preamble. "She is Michael's daughter." Mariana nodded, unsurprised. "I know. I have always known. Tell me about the pregnancy," I said. "I want to understand everything." Mariana settled into the chair across from my desk, her hands folded carefully in her lap. "I found out I was pregnant about 6 months after Michael and I started seeing each other. I was terrified. I was barely making ends meet as it was, and suddenly I was going to be responsible for another life." "Did you consider I could not finish the question?" Abortion Mariana's voice was calm, matter-of-fact. "Yes, for about 10 minutes, but when I told Michael, he got this look on his face like Christmas morning and pure terror all mixed together. He said he had never thought he would have the chance to be a father, that he had always assumed he was not good enough." Not good enough. Where had Michael gotten that idea from me, from years of pushing him toward achievements and goals, instead of simply loving him as he was? "He was amazing during the pregnancy," Mariana continued. "He read every book about babies he could find. He talked to Camila when she was still in my belly, told her stories about his own childhood, about the grandmother she would meet someday. The grandmother she would meet someday. Michael had always planned to tell me. He had always intended for Camila to know her family. But he had died before he could bridge that gap, leaving Mariana to navigate the aftermath alone." "What about the birth?" I asked softly. Mariana's face softened with memory. "Michael wanted to be there, but we decided it was too risky. Too many questions if someone saw him at the hospital with me. So Victor was my labor coach, but Michael came later that same night." She smiled through tears. "He held her for 3 hours straight, just sat in the rocking chair in her nursery, staring at her like she was a miracle." I closed my eyes, imagining Michael as a new father, overwhelmed by love for this tiny person he had helped create. I should have been there. I should have been the one bringing meals, offering support, helping with those exhausting first weeks of parenthood. He was a good father to her, Mariana said, reading my thoughts. Limited by the circumstances, but devoted. He never missed a birthday or a Christmas. He taught her to ride a bike, helped her with homework, attended every piano recital and school play he could manage. But he missed things too, did he not? I asked quietly, because he could not explain his absences to me. Mariana nodded reluctantly. There were times when he had to choose. Your birthday dinner versus Camila's parent-teacher conference. A business obligation you had arranged versus her first piano recital? Mariana said quietly. He tried to balance both worlds, but it was not always possible. The weight of my unknowing selfishness crushed down on me. How many times had I demanded Michael's attention on days when his daughter needed him? How many guilt trips had I laid on him for being distracted when he was actually worried about Camila's fever or her school troubles? I should have known, I said bitterly. A mother should know when her child is living a double life. Michael was very good at compartmentalizing, Mariana said gently. He loved you, Mrs. Bennett. He talked about you constantly, worried about your loneliness, wanted to include you in our lives, but he was also terrified of disappointing you. Instead, he disappointed me by hiding the most important thing in his life. He was going to tell you, Mariana insisted. That last year, he talked about it almost daily. He had gotten tired of the secrecy, tired of feeling like he was betraying everyone he loved. The night he died, he was finally ready to bring his two worlds together. But fate had stolen that opportunity, leaving us all to navigate the aftermath of his choices without him. Outside, Camila's laughter rang through the garden as she caught a particularly elusive firefly. The sound was so much like Michael's childhood laughter that it physically hurt to hear. She is going to ask questions eventually, I said quietly, about why she never knew she had a grandmother, about why her father was a secret. I know, Mariana said softly. I have been dreading that conversation for months. Maybe it is time we had it. I said the words, surprising me even as I spoke them. Maybe it is time to stop protecting her from the truth. Mariana looked up sharply. You want to tell her I want her to know who she is, I said firmly. I want her to know that she has a family beyond just you and Victor, that she is loved and wanted, even if the circumstances are complicated. Mariana was quiet for a long moment, watching Camilla through the window. And what about us? What happens to me in this scenario? It was a fair question. Mariana had lied to me, had perpetuated Michael's deception even after his death. But she had also been trapped by circumstances beyond her control, protecting her daughter the only way she knew how. I do not know yet, I admitted. I am still angry, still hurt. But Camila needs stability, and you are her mother. Whatever happens between us, she comes first. Mariana nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks. That is all I have ever wanted, for her to come first. As we sat in the gathering darkness, watching my granddaughter chase fireflies with innocent joy, I realized that Michael's death had stolen more than just his life. It had stolen the chance for all of us to become a family the right way, with honesty, openness, and time to adjust. But maybe it was not too late to salvage something from the wreckage. Maybe there was still a chance to give Camila the grandmother she deserved and to find in her the family I had lost when Michael died. The question was whether I could find a way to forgive the people who had kept her from me, and whether I could forgive myself for being the kind of person they felt they needed to hide her from. The morning I decided to tell Camila the truth about her father, I woke before dawn with the weight of that choice pressing against my chest like a stone. For weeks, I had been living in a strange limbo, knowing she was my granddaughter, but unable to fully embrace her while the lies still stood between us. I found Mariana in the kitchen, preparing Camila's breakfast with the quiet efficiency that had become familiar. She looked up when I entered, her eyes immediately searching my face for clues about my mood and my intentions. "We need to tell her today," I said without preamble. Mariana's hands stilled on the orange she was peeling. "Are you sure you are ready?" "I will never be ready," I admitted. "But she deserves to know who she is. And I cannot keep pretending to be just the nice lady whose house her mother cleans." Camilla chose that moment to bound into the kitchen, her hair still messy from sleep-wearing pajamas decorated with dancing unicorns. She climbed onto her usual stool at the counter and smiled at me with the easy affection that had developed between us over the past month. "Good morning, Mrs. Bennet," she said brightly, then noticed the tension in the room. "Is everything okay?" Mariana and I exchanged glances. There was no perfect way to do this, no script for explaining to a 9-year-old that everything she thought she knew about her family was incomplete. "Sweetheart," Mariana said carefully, "Mrs. Bennet and I need to talk to you about something important." About Papa. Camila's face grew serious. She had the emotional intelligence of a child who had learned early that adult conversations about her papa usually meant complicated things. "Did I do something wrong?" she asked softly. "No, baby," I said quickly, moving to sit beside her. "You have done nothing wrong," I told her gently. "But there are some things about your papa that we have not told you yet. Things that might seem confusing at first." For the next hour, Mariana and I carefully unwound the tangled threads of truth that had been knotted for 9 years. We told Camila that Michael had been her biological father and that Victor had chosen to love her as his own daughter, even though they were not related by blood. We explained that Michael had been my son, which made me her grandmother. Camila listened with the focused attention children give to information that reshapes their entire world. She asked questions with startling clarity. Why had Papa not told people about me? Why had I not met you before? Am I still allowed to call Papa Victor my papa in my heart? Of course you can, I assured her softly. Victor loved you and raised you. He will always be your papa. But Michael was your biological father, and he loved you very much too. So I had 2 papas, she said thoughtfully. And now I have a grandmother I did not know about. The simplicity with which she accepted this complex reality humbled me. Where I saw betrayal and deception, she saw additional love. Where I felt confusion and hurt, she found wonder in discovering that she had more family than she had known. Are you angry that we did not tell you before? Mariana asked, her voice tight with worry. Camilla considered this seriously. A little sad, she admitted, because if I had known, I could have been your granddaughter for longer. She looked at me with those familiar eyes, Michael's eyes. But mostly, I am happy. Mama has been sad since Papa Michael and Papa Victor went to heaven. Maybe now she will not be so lonely. The insight in her words took my breath away. This child, who had every right to feel confused or betrayed, was thinking about her mother's happiness instead of her own shaken world. Over the following weeks, we developed new routines that reflected our changed circumstances. Camilla moved into the bedroom next to mine, the one I had originally preserved as Michael's childhood room. Mariana took over the housekeeper's quarters, which included a small sitting room, giving them privacy while keeping us close. I discovered the joy of being a grandmother in ways I had never imagined. Camilla approached our relationship with the same openness she brought to everything else. She taught me games I had long forgotten, introduced me to animated movies that made me laugh until my sides hurt, and asked me endless questions about Michael's childhood. Did Papa Michael like to read when he was little like me? she asked one evening as we sat together in the library. She sat with a chapter book, and I with my usual biography. He loved adventure stories, I told her. Pirates' treasure hunts and brave explorers. I like those too, Camila said with satisfaction. Maybe I got that from him through the genes. Maybe you did, I replied softly. She was quiet for a moment, then asked, "Do you think he would have liked to read with me?" The question pierced my heart. I think he would have loved nothing more. These conversations became our way of building a bridge between the father she had never been allowed to know and the grandmother who was learning to love her. Through Camila's curiosity about Michael, I began to see my son through new eyes, not just as the distant, successful man he had become, but as the loving father he had been in secret. Mariana and I navigated our own relationship carefully. The betrayal I felt was real, but so was my understanding of her impossible position. She had been protecting Camila the only way she knew how, just as Michael had been protecting all of us from a truth he feared would tear us apart. "I want to make something clear," I told her one afternoon while Camila was at her new school. "I am changing my will." Mariana's face went white. "Mrs. Bennett, I never expected—" "Everything will go to Camila," I continued. "The house, the investments, the business holdings, all of it. She is Michael's daughter, my granddaughter, and my only heir." "That is too much," Mariana protested. "She is just a child. She does not need—" "She needs security," I interrupted gently. "She needs to know that she belongs somewhere, that she has a family legacy. And you need to know that you will never have to eat leftovers on kitchen floors again." The reference to that first day I had found Camila made Mariana flinch. "I was trying to teach her not to take things for granted," she whispered. "I know," I said, "but she is my granddaughter, Mariana. She should not have to be grateful for scraps from her own family's table." That conversation led to others about practical matters about the future we were trying to build. Mariana would continue managing the household, but as a family member rather than an employee. Camila would attend the best schools, take music and dance lessons, and have every opportunity Michael would have wanted for her. But more important than money or opportunity was the simple fact of belonging. For the first time in her life, Camila knew she had extended family. She had a grandmother who attended her school plays, helped with homework, and taught her to bake the same cookies I had once made for Michael. 6 months after learning the truth, I received a call from Emily, Michael's former girlfriend. She had heard through mutual friends about Camila and wanted to express her condolences on my loss while also sharing her own grief. "I always wondered why Michael seemed distracted during our last year together," she admitted quietly. "Now I understand. He was thinking about his daughter," Emily said softly. "Did you know?" I asked. "Did he ever mention her?" "Not directly," she admitted. "But there were signs. If I had been paying attention phone calls, he took in private weekend trips he could not fully explain. I thought he was having doubts about our relationship, but maybe he was just torn between two different lives." After we hung up, I sat in Michael's old room where Camila was now sleeping. I watched her, the soft rhythm of her breathing steady and calm. She looked so much like him at that age, all long limbs and dark lashes. But there was something in her face that was purely her own, a peacefulness that Michael had rarely possessed. Perhaps that was Mariana's gift to her daughter, the ability to find contentment in simple things. Or perhaps it was Victor's legacy, the quiet security of being loved unconditionally by a man who had chosen to be her father. The next morning, Camila found me in the garden where I was tending the roses Michael had planted for me years ago. "Grandmother," she said, settling cross-legged on the grass beside me, The title still sounded new and wonderful every time she used it. Yes, sweetheart, I was thinking about Papa Michael and Papa Victor being in heaven together. I paused in my pruning, waiting for her to continue. Do you think they are friends now? Since they both loved me and Mama? The question was so pure, so hopeful, that it took my breath away. Where I had seen rivalry and complication, she saw the possibility of friendship. Where I had found reasons for jealousy and hurt, she found common ground. I think they probably are, I said carefully. I think they are both happy that you are safe and loved. And I think they are happy that you are not sad anymore, she added, with the quiet wisdom that consistently amazed me. She was right. The crushing grief that had consumed me since Michael's death had lightened, not because I missed him less, but because I had found a reason to embrace life again. In learning to love Camila, I had discovered a purpose that went beyond mourning what I had lost. That evening, I called my lawyer to finalize the changes to my will. Everything would go to Camila with Mariana as trustee until her daughter came of age. But I also added provisions for Mariana herself, ensuring she would never again have to worry about financial security. As I signed the documents, I thought about Michael's letter to Camilady, one where he had written that he hoped someday she would meet me and see that I had a heart big enough to love her too. He had been right. My heart had expanded in ways I had never thought possible. The granddaughter I had never known existed had become the center of my world, not because I was trying to replace Michael, but because loving her felt like the most natural thing in the world. The house that had once felt like a mausoleum was alive again, with the sounds of childhood, laughter echoing through the hall's music drifting from Camilla's room, and the constant chatter of a bright child who felt safe enough to share every thought that crossed her mind. Mariana and I had found our own rhythm too. We would never be friends in the conventional sense. Too much pain and deception lay between us for that, but we had become something more important, partners in raising Camila, united in our desire to give her the stable, loving family that Michael had dreamed of creating. On a Sunday morning, exactly 1 year after I had first found Camila eating leftovers in my kitchen, I woke to the smell of pancakes and the sound of her singing. I found her standing on a step stool, carefully flipping pancakes while Mariana guided her hands. "Good morning, grandmother," she called out cheerfully. "I am making breakfast for everyone because it is a special day." What makes today special, I asked, though I already knew. It was the anniversary of Michael's death, but also the anniversary of the day that had brought Camila into my life. Because today is the day our family got bigger instead of smaller, she said, with the profound simplicity that characterized all her observations about our complicated lives. As we sat together at the kitchen table eating pancakes and planning our day, I realized that Michael had achieved his goal after all. He had brought his two worlds together, just not in the way he had planned. Through his death, through the revelation of his secrets, through the love he had inspired in all of us, he had created the family he had always wanted. It was not the family any of us had imagined built as it was on lost truth-telling and forgiveness, but it was real in a way that Michael's careful compartmentalization had never been. We belonged to each other now, not because of blood alone, but because we had chosen to love through the complications and pain. And in the end, that choice had made all the difference. Now I am curious about you who listened to my story. What would you have done if you were in my place? Have you ever been through something similar? Comment below. And meanwhile, I am leaving on the final screen 2 other stories that are channel favorites, and they will definitely surprise you. Thank you for watching until the end.